There I am. Hi, Deanna.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good.
Good. Thanks for joining the NFIP meeting earlier today. The flood the policy meeting. That was really nice to have you there.
Thank you. What did you think of the meeting with the township?
It was less about the flooding than I thought it would be.
Yeah.
My understanding is that meeting was primarily going to be about flooding, and that's not necessarily what happened. But we can chat another time about this. We'll chat another time. I've started recording on this meeting, so I figure we'll just kind of keep it more neutral. And
I'm sorry.
No, you're totally fine. If you want, at the end, we can chat more about this. If you want to stay on. Hi, Andrea.
Hi, Amber. Hi, Deanna.
Hello, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Good, thank you.
Tony, would you like to be Anthony or Tony in our notes?
Tony, please.
Okay.
Hi, Tony. How are you?
There. Hi, Amber. I'm good. How are you?
Oh, I'm good. Busy as always.
Yeah.
By the way, Tony, thank you for the instigator to get this meeting set up and everything. I appreciate that.
Oh, that was me? Okay.
It was you. Yeah, you texted me. It was like, hey, I want to talk with people about what I've been doing. I'm like, yeah, we need a meeting. Good call.
Maybe I made it sound like what I'm doing is very useful, but I don't know if it is, but hopefully it may spur some thought anyway. I didn't accomplish what I wanted to really, but I think it's heading in the right direction. That there are at least answers that we can shoot for.
Yeah, hey, we'll take anything at this point. Anything to like help with all of this, right? I mean, the hard part is this is such a big system and there's so many factors influencing it. There's no one right answer, one right solution, or one right like method to go about something. So any information is helpful information at this point.
Mm-hmm.
So I appreciate it.
Yep.
Ah, there you are.
There I am. I haven't used Zoom in a while. I had to find the little camera icon.
Which is funny because I feel like I'm on Zoom all day long. So difference in lifestyle, right? You get the joys of being retired, so you can not be on Zoom all day long.
Yep.
Hello.
Hey, Carrie.
How are you?
Good. How are you?
Oh, wonderful. Thanks.
Wonderful. Wow. Take some of your energy. That's awesome.
5 hours in the studio with an artist having fun. That's why.
That's great.
Make this work just like this.
Yep, had a blast.
Let's see.
Okay, that's
Sure.
Jeff.
Huh?
I said, this is, oh, there you go.
Oh, he like pops in and out.
Yeah. He teleports in. It's amazing.
It's the Star Trek version.
That's cool.
Before we get started, could I ask who Chapin's is? I'm just recording who all is here. And with names like that, I don't know who it is.
It's Bonnie and Tim Chapin. We live
I'm sorry. Can you repeat it?
Bonnie,
Yeah, go ahead.
Bonnie
and Tim Chapin.
Thank you very much. And how about Tammy? iPhone Tammy.
Hi,
Hi,
how are you?
great. Can I get your first and last name, please? I'm just recording who is present at the meeting.
Oh, sure. It's actually my husband and myself, Dale and Tammy Phillips.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Hey, Tammy, it's Deanna. How are you?
Good. How are you, Deanna?
I'm good.
Good.
Hi, Deanna.
Hey, Dale, how are you? Good to see you guys.
You too.
Maureen's here.
Hi, Maureen. It's good to see you.
Hi, everyone. It's good to see you.
Hello. Let me see if I can, there. Can you see better? Okay. You're gonna be looking at my lamp for a while so Dale can see too.
Perfect. I feel like you should name your lamp. Lamp Phillips.
Yeah, exactly. Just call her Crystal.
Okay.
Oh, that's good.
I like her backdrop better.
Oh, I know. That background looks beautiful.
That's the Grand Hotel's porch.
Ah,
Wow. Yes.
it looks beautiful. I bet it's really cold there right now.
Oh, I bet, yeah, there's no flowers alive anymore.
I'll bet there's no flowers.
They might actually have snow at this point. There was snow in
Yeah.
the middle of the state the other day.
I know. Gaylord got 11 inches.
That's a
Mhm.
lot.
Not cool.
I always love this time of year in Michigan because all of us Michiganders get so surprised by the snow coming. But this happens every single year
I
at the same
know.
at the same time. But we're all still going, oh my gosh, it's snow in November.
Right, right.
It just cracks me up every year.
Everybody forgets how to drive
Uh-huh.
for about 2 weeks.
Yep. Then we all get our winter legs back.
Right.
We'll wait about another minute here and then we'll go ahead and get started, give people a chance to get on.
Sure. Can you see? Okay.
Hi, Ron, SC. Can you, this is Andrea Clausen. I'm our secretary, and I'm just recording names of people who are present. Would you mind stating your name so I can write it down?
Sure.
Kerry,
Ron,
Kerry Adams.
Okay, and Ron?
Ron Zuba, SZUBA.
Thank you.
Ron.
And I guess we'll get Sarah once she's connected.
Sarah, can you share your first and last name so we have a kind of record of who's here?
Yes, Sarah and Keith Phillips.
Oh, you?
Hey. Florida.
That's right, Florida.
Yes. Hi, Tammy.
Hi, Sarah.
All right, everyone. Well, it's about a minute after 7, so we'll go ahead and get started. I am going to ask that you mute until we get a chance to actually open up questions. So we do have a fair amount that we're going to share today. The purpose of today's meeting is to kind of give a reminder as to who we all are and what we're doing. And in particular, more importantly, share all of the different projects that we've been working on in the past few months in the midst of the continuous flooding that we seem to all be experiencing. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. And what I'm going to do is well, first I'll introduce myself and then I'm going to share my screen in the process. So my name is Amber Bismack. I live on the north side of Ore Lake. And I started this work with Diane. Oh geez, Diane, I don't even remember at this point how long we've been doing this. Year and a half, 2 years, something like that. It started for us soon after the January 2020 flood. Let me see if I always forget how to share on Google Slides. Present. There we are. And so we kind of got into this flooding work and so gathered some neighbors and started making our rounds through what it means to actually investigate the flooding and what's going on in our community. And so in particular, just kind of a sense of who people are. So a lot of these folks are actually, I think everyone's on the call tonight almost. So like I said, I'm Amber Bismack. I've been doing this work with Diane Henry, who's with us today. Also up here on the north side of Ore Lake, Andrea, who's been chiming in, who's also wonderful. She is serving as our secretary and so taking dubious notes today. And Jeff Henry, who pops in and out of the screen with Diane. He is our website developer. So thank you very much to Jeff for all of his work on setting up our website and keeping it updated. We have Carrie Adams with us today, who he's been working with Deanna McDowell, they're both on Little Ore Lake, and they've been helping kind of work on the efforts to try and investigate the water inputs coming in upstream to Ore Lake. And then we have Maureen Malloy on the calls with us as well. And she's been working with some other folks and trying to help pull together grants for FEMA to help people elevate their homes. So we'll be talking about these things as well as some other projects going on today that we've been working on for a while. I do also want to mention before I continue that we are recording this because there's a number of folks who are not able to make it tonight. And so we'll be able to post this up on our website so other people can actually keep updated in all the work that we're doing. Whoops, I went the wrong way. So like I said, Diane and I had started this a while back, but in particular, we kind of got involved after the January 2020 flood. For those of you that were around, you may remember, and for us in particular, our driveway and all the way around the house flooded, and then it all froze, and actually for us sunk our driveway, which has been incredibly unfun since then. And so after that experience, I actually, from that moment, I ended up on the news in Lansing. And that kind of sparked my involvement with the township and really trying to investigate what was going on. And through different conversations we had, including conversations with folks at the Huron River Watershed Council, they put us in touch with the Thriving Earth Exchange. And the Thriving Earth Exchange is an organization that is funded through the American Geological Union. And the purpose behind this is, as it says at the bottom, is to advance community solutions, particularly by helping scientists, community leaders, and sponsors work together to solve different local challenges. And the particular challenges are related to different natural resources, climate change, natural hazards, and so on. So they work with communities all over the country to try and help them figure out what's going on with their community issues and challenges related to different environmental factors. For us, it's flooding. For other communities, it's wildfires and so on.
Can everyone see the slideshow? I can't.
Oh, you can't?
No.
Uh-oh.
I see a picture of two people.
Uh-oh.
I saw it fine.
Did you?
You could see it, Ron?
Yep.
We could see it.
Where Penny's is on
All
Facebook.
right.
Okay,
All
I'm
right,
sorry. Maybe it's something I'm doing. I'll need to see it though.
You will need to see it. Okay. Let me try again. And Tony, can you, if you can't see it, can you send a message to myself or Diane or
Okay.
Andrea?
Okay, will do.
Thank you. Let me try
Sorry
sharing one
about
more
that.
time. That's okay. Let's see. Oops, I think now it's going to be a real issue. Hold on. Computer got confused. There we are. Oh, gotta love technology. Good and bad. All right, can folks see it?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right, good. So, so through the Thriving Earth Exchange, we applied for this for our community to be part of this, working with the American Geological Union. And in doing so, we were chosen as one of a number of communities to be involved. And in particular, they put us in touch with a community science fellow, Claire Zarakis, who's actually on the call right now. And she did some work to actually help move this project forward. So I'm going to give Claire a moment to actually share a little bit about herself, how she got involved and her interest in this work.
Hi, yeah, I'm Claire Zarakis. Thanks for the intro, Amber. I've been involved with this project from afar. So I'm based in Seattle, Washington. I'm a PhD student at the University of Washington, but previously worked in consulting for a bunch of different environmental causes at the state and federal level. And I was most involved with the early stages of this project. So thinking of a specific ask for different scientists and then reaching out to the network of scientists as part of AGU to find some good matches for this project, but not at the level of Amber and Diane and all of you who are really kind of leading this project forward. So it's really exciting to see all the projects that you've been taking on and looking forward to hearing more about the rest of the meeting.
Thanks, Claire. So Claire, I have to say, has been instrumental in this work because she's really helped us try and figure out where to go and get the help that we need to move forward. So what she has done is actually put us in touch with a number of different scientists to be able to work with. So Claire serves as our community science fellow, and she's put us in touch with two other scientists, in particular hydrologists. So we work with Dr. Wendy Robertson, which a little picture right here of Wendy. And then she's a professor at Central Michigan University focusing on hydrology. She also put us in touch with Mr. Scott Dirks, who is a senior water resources engineer at GEI Consultants in Ann Arbor. So we have Scott here. And so those two have really helped us set up our work looking at the water inputs into Ore Lake, which Carrie's going to talk about later. And in that conversation, those relationships that we've been developing and collaborations working with them, Wendy actually then put us in touch with Dr. Rod Lammers, who's actually a new professor at Central Michigan University in engineering. And in particular, his area is flood management and environmental modeling, specifically around wetlands and how wetlands can serve as potentially as water retention. So we're really excited to have Rod on the project as well now to try and help us figure out kind of what's going on with the water inputs. So those are the folks that we're working with and kind of the key players in all of this, but that's all to say there's a lot of people involved in this effort and a lot of people taking up different aspects and different sections of all of the flood work that we've been doing to try and help lead this charge as we continue. So before getting into the details of the different projects, just kind of as a reminder of where we are, I know many of you may know this, but some folks may be a little new to it. So I wanted to include a map here. This is a map done by Chris Olson at the Huron River Watershed Council. And so what she did is she actually mapped out the different watersheds that lead into the Huron River. And so here in the very dark blue, you can see the Huron River. You can see the different highways on the maps here. We have 96 and 23. And what we have highlighted right here is the watershed for South Ore Creek. So this, you can see the little dots and everything. This is South Ore Creek, following with my mouse, goes all the way up toward M59. All of the water that lands anywhere in this watershed comes right to this point on the north side of Ore Lake and drains into Ore Lake. That is the main watershed that's flowing into Ore Lake. And the other watershed that flows in is Durova Creek. So if you're following my mouse down here, you can see right along this little blue line here around Huron Meadows Metro Park and such, that's Durova Creek. And there's a watershed around there. We don't know what that looks like yet, but any water in that area also flows in. So we have those two main creek inputs into Ore Lake. And that's where our water comes from. And then, of course, as we all know, then flows into the Huron River from there. So that's a general sense of where we are and kind of the layout that we have going on is what we're trying to work with and deal with in this process. So back in August, we had all met, and I think probably all of you, or at least most of you, were in that meeting. It was a really great turnout. We had over 50 people attend the meeting. And what we did is we gave people a chance to share some concerns and questions and thoughts they had about the flooding, sometimes related to specifically to that August flood, which was the 4th worst flood on record, and also, and just in general, related to flooding and such. And so what we've done here, thank you to Maureen and Andrea for working on this, is compiling a list of the different concerns that we have. I'm not going to go through them. We're going to kind of break these down a little bit more in a moment. These are the concerns that folks had shared in that August meeting. And then we also had some different questions raised during that August meeting. And again, we're going to break these down a little bit more in a moment, but I just wanted to call attention that we're actually building this on a screen. We're actually going to be building our work around some of these concerns and questions that that came out during that meeting. We have some areas that we're already working towards, some areas that we still haven't quite gotten there because there's just so much to try and make sense of and figure out. And then there was also some suggestions that folks had shared as well. So before we do that, I just want to make a quick update. So on Tuesday, we had the Hamburg Township had a Board of Trustees meeting Tuesday afternoon. And one of the things they talked about during that meeting was the August flood. And anytime it's actually required by Hamburg Township and their rules and such that anytime a flood peaks over 8 feet, they have to have some response and some methods and efforts to actually mitigate or at least have better response to future floods. And so a couple of things that they mentioned during that meeting is that they are going to be focusing on addressing issues of no wake during flood stage. And so that's going to involve more police monitoring of the lakes and rivers around here, including Ore Lake. They have 2 jet skis and a boat to try and help with that. They're also going to be purchasing some no wake signs and buoys to be able to install those signs during flooding events. There's a lot of issues and not issues, but kind of regulations around that with related to the DNR. So you may not see those initially, but they are in the process of getting them put together and actually installed. The other thing that was mentioned is that the township has secured more consistent access to the river to allow for weed harvesting, both upstream and downstream of the Winans Lake Bridge. The downstream launch will need a little bit more work to kind of get it ready for weed harvesting, but they do have pretty solid access upstream. So they're trying to be more proactive in that sense. They're able to do more of the weed harvesting to hopefully try and allow better water flow in the river. So that's what came out of the Tuesday meeting. So at this point, what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually turn over to Carrie, who's going to share a little bit about the efforts in studying the upstream water inputs into our lake.
Thank you, Amber. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. We are at the inception point, really, or at least the building point of data into Ore Lake. Deanna McDowell and I, we had installed some gauges that we built earlier on south shore of Little Ore and on the output of the Riverside Culvert. And we've been taking that level data probably for the last 3 major level changes of flood all the way back to July, August timeframe. So there should be 100+ days of readings. We were taking them daily, sometimes twice a day. So we've got a good start, at least on data on Little Ore, as far as what happens to the water before, during, and after rain events. And so it's now a matter of collating that data and taking a look at what are the responses and maybe tying that back to rain events and location of rain events and things like that. The second part is Amber and support of team members and the students, and I'll let you talk more about that, Amber, since you met with them and I didn't, are going to assist with the 4 gauges that were installed upstream, which are going to provide more information regarding flows into the lake, as Amber showed you on the map. So the big thing we never had in the past that we have now, that we have flow data, multiple points coming into the lake, what those flows are, and we should be able to correlate that with level gauges and hopefully with some rain metrics, if possible, around that whole area from 59 down, as she showed you on the map. And over the winter time, hopefully our scientific crew is going to be able to look at all that data and start to make sense of the questions like are on the that came from the community event, like where's the water coming from, how come it's coming in this way, what's the frequency, and all the things that everybody wants to know about. We are now quickly learning what those things are. And so the big news for now is, for the past month or 2, we've been collecting a lot more information on just what the inputs and outputs of our lake are. And that's basically all I have. We're going to be removing those gauges here pretty soon, and those gauges take data on a regular basis, and they're going to get downloaded by Jeff and Diane, and hopefully by the time all that information is looked at by our scientific crew, that we will have a much better understanding of just what the lake was doing. And fortunately or unfortunately, depending on which side of the team you're on, we had a couple of pretty good floods this year. So we should be able to learn something about the dynamics of the water. If it sat level all summer long, like in the past, we wouldn't have learned much, but we should be able to learn something this year. And that's all I have for now.
Thanks, Carrie. One thing I want to mention here. Let me go back a little bit. Can I go back? How do I go back? This is not helping me go back here. Sorry.
Okay.
Google Slides is an interesting feature. Okay. One thing just to add on to what Carrie was saying. So you mentioned these gauges upstream. We have 2 gauges on Durova Creek. Looking at the water inputs, we have 1 gauge on South Ore Creek, and then one gauge looking at the water outflow from Ore Lake into the Huron River. And so what these gauges, Carrie actually was wonderful enough to build these structures right here. So you can see it's a big post. It's got some PVCs in it. We actually have gauges sitting inside those measuring water pressure differences to be able to get information about water discharge and flow in these areas to figure out what's coming in. So yeah, it's really exciting. This is actually the focus of the Thriving Earth Exchange work that we were doing. So it's exciting to finally get this going. You can see Wendy was actually out here helping us do this work. Carrie was instrumental in actually building it. Tony was even out there helping along with Diane and other folks. So it definitely was a community effort. One thing that, as Carrie had mentioned, and I know he's mentioned a few times to me as well, we do need help removing the gauges in about the next week or 2. So that is one area that we could use support in the coming few weeks, actually.
Anybody that has insulated waders is welcome.
Yeah, you don't want to be in without insulated waders. It's chilly. All right. So now what we're going to do is I'm going to turn over to Maureen here to talk a little bit about the Fema grants that we've been working on and what that can mean for homeowners.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Just want to share with you that we're able to move forward thanks to the input from the community members who were interested in looking at the possibility of elevating their home in response to the ongoing and repeated flooding situations. That has been a suggestion from the township all along, is that that is one thing that homeowners could do, is to raise their home. And so we know that's a costly endeavor for families. And so we wanted to see if we could secure some funding in partnership with the township to help families in that way.
Eric got insulated.
Yeah.
too.
Move it.
Eric's it.
Next slide. So actually the next slide as well. So we were able to submit notice of intent to apply for 2 grants, the Bric grant and the FMA grant, both of which would result in the ability to have some funding for homeowners to raise their homes and also raise their grinder pumps. The township was kind enough to partner with the community members to assist in writing the grant. And so they selected McKenna Group to write and gather documents for the full proposals. Amber, Diane, Andrea, Stephanie, and so many of you that are on the call today worked to help us gather information about homeowners who would be interested. So thank you for that. That allowed us to submit that notice of intent. Our full applications, the full applications will need to be submitted November 29th to the state of Michigan, and then the full applications from the state of Michigan move on to FEMA in January of 2022. So we will hear back about those grants and we'll keep people informed. We should hear back by April 2022. So that's it for me. I'll pass it back to you, Amber.
Thanks, Maureen. Yeah, so this is a very exciting opportunity to try and help people elevate their home, get some money to help people elevate their homes. As of right now for these grants, what I'll just add on to what Maureen was saying is we're narrowing in on particular homes that were identified by a study that the township funded a while back as being particularly low first floor elevations. That doesn't mean that we can't actually expand that to other homeowners in the future, but we have to start somewhere. And so this is a starting point. We're going to learn a lot through this process of pulling together these grants and hopefully be able to submit even other opportunities and other grant potentials in the future. So it's a great start, and I'm hopeful to see what happens with this, but it is a long process. As you can see, we have the submission to the state reviews it, and then it goes on to FEMA, and then they review it and make the final decisions. So it does take a while to go through this, but it's at least a good starting point. We have a lot of folks on board, which is great. The other thing I wanted to just make a note real quick, if you are not speaking at the moment, I would ask that you please mute your microphones because there is a lot of background noise here to allow people to be able to hear. All right, so another project that actually started about in the past month or so is working with Innovation Academy, which is in a high school in Howell Public Schools. Big shout out to Deanna McDowell, who actually put us in touch with Innovation Academy because her son, Jay, actually is a teacher there. And so the purpose of working with Innovation Academy is really try and get at some of those questions that folks had in relation to the land use changes upstream of Ore Lake, and and also the watershed issues, and not really sure what the watershed even is for Durova Creek. And so with the unique part about Innovation Academy is that this is a alternative high school where they're driven actually by projects that the students actually kind of lead and take on with support from the teachers there. And so here what we have is we have an opportunity for the students to actually learn a lot about kind of the community and what's going on, and actually do some work to try and investigate the land use changes upstream and then also the watershed. So what they did is back in, I'm gonna get all my times mixed up, in October, I think it was. You can see over here, Diane and I actually went out to Innovation Academy and talked with some of the students, introduced the projects and what we were working on and what we could use help with as a partnership with them. And then they actually came out a week or two later, and we talked a little bit about where we're located. And then they actually got to see the area. You can see some photos here. Even here, we had Rod Lammers from CMU come down and actually see the area as well. And since then, they've actually been doing some work for us already. And so one of the things, they are building actually an underwater drone that they're going to work on. They're going to actually be coming out in the coming days to try and test that out yet again, because like all things in engineering, it doesn't always work the first time. So you got to make some changes and go back and fix it again. The other thing they did is they actually did some, had their aerial drone come out and took some aerial footage and both video and photographs of the Durova Creek area. And so you can see this road is Mohican, all the little tiny dots standing there. And so this is actually Durova Creek flowing around. So you can see kind of where the water is actually going, again over here too. And up this way in the top picture, you can see Ore Lake and Durova Creek right along here, along with some large wetland areas. So it kind of gave us a sense of what that looks like a little bit. And I have a brief video here from that aerial drone, which I'll play just a few seconds of it so you can kind of see a little bit of the Durova Creek and what they did. And we will post these photos and videos on the website later and share them on Facebook as well.
Durova Creek.
You can see there's Durova Creek right there.
Oh,
Or lake again.
that's over what guys wanted to develop.
And there's Mohican and Durova Creek again. So that shows kind of that whole wetland just around Durova Creek and the north side of Ore Lake there. So this right here, what you're looking at is kind of a canal that's actually from some property up here that flows into Durova Creek, which then flows into Ore Lake. It's right just east of South Ore Creek. So that's one. They had one other video and then also some other photos. Again, we'll share those on our website and also send them out to folks. But that's what what they did for the drone a couple weeks ago. And like I said, they're still working on the underwater drone to try and get footage of the culverts to see how much sediment's actually sitting in the bottom of the culverts. And then there's other students at, well, I did want to mention, sorry, real quick, we are in the news with it. This actually came out this morning, which is exciting. The news talking about WHMI did a story talking about this partnership that we have with the students. Here you can see they're testing the underwater drone and such. And so this was kind of a neat opportunity. They're going to, WHMI is going to continue to kind of keep an eye on things and even do more future stories about the benefits of this type of partnership between students and communities. So what they have is that you saw the picture of the underwater drone in that article. That's one that they're going to come out, like I said, and test again in a couple of weeks. They're also doing the land use study. So some different students in this Innovation Academy are going to be working on that land use study to look at how the land has changed in the Brighton area and so on in the past 10 to 15 years. And they're doing that using GIS and such. And so they actually have some GIS software that the school is able to actually download because they're a school, they can get some of that for free. And so they're able to layer on different maps to try and look at those changes over time, which would be particularly helpful when thinking about what those changes can actually mean for increasing of flooding in our area. So that's one of the things. Another thing that they're doing, another piece, is there's some other students who are actually looking to map the watershed for Durova Creek, because that's a creek that actually up until last summer, the Drain Commission did not know existed. So it has not been mapped. We don't really know what the watershed looks like, which means we don't actually know what buildings are in it. We don't know what neighborhoods are in that watershed. So we don't, in a sense, know where that water is coming from. And so having that watershed map would be particularly helpful. And then lastly, we have a few students who are also interested in issues of policy. And so they've been starting to get more information about the National Flood Insurance Program. And so they actually joined a meeting with us today about that, and we'll be continuing that work in the future with them. So they're doing a lot of different things with us. And so it's a really great learning opportunity for the students. And also, of course, we benefit because we learn a lot more about the water and the flooding and such in our area. So speaking of the National Flood Insurance Program, this is another project that we're working on. So one of the things that people had mentioned in that August meeting is that they were concerned about the increased frequency of flooding, the high cost of flood insurance, what that means for agencies they can actually reach out to, and some help and support they can get, and actual some more changes more specifically with relation to the cost of flood insurance and so on. And so what we've been doing is we've been working with a few different offices. In particular, Representative Alyssa Slotkin's office has been instrumental in this work. We also have had some conversations with Senator Peters' office. And today, a few of us actually sat in a meeting with the Natural Resources Defense Council. So there's different folks around the country talking about issues related to the National Flood Insurance Program. Now the National Flood Insurance Program, as many of you know, with flood insurance, this is often where you get your flood insurance unless it comes from a private location, private company. And so what tends to happen for homeowners is that they buy a home, but you actually can't get informed prior to buying that home about any flood claims on that home. And the problem with that is that the flood claims on the home can actually cause a home to be designated as repetitive loss or severe repetitive loss based on the number of claims and the cost of those claims. And if a home is designated as one of those two, then the premium for your flood insurance is incredibly high. And we're talking over $10,000 high. So very high, in some sense unlivable for some folks, but now you're stuck in this home with really high flood insurance and uncertain of what to do. And so there's, along with other issues related to the flood insurance program, issues with FEMA mapping and so on, there's a lot of changes and revamping that needs to happen with this program. Partly because this program has not been revamped or changed in many years. And so it's time. And so it's actually up for reauthorization this year. And so because it's already up for reauthorization, communities around the country are working on it. That's how the National Resources Defense Council got involved. We reached out to Representative Slotkin's office and Senator Peters' office. And so they've been involved in some of this work. And so there's a few different things happening in relation to helping try and make some changes nationally in relation to the National Flood Insurance Program. One of the things that's coming, and you will get information from us probably in the next week or so, is the request to submit a letter to FEMA because they just put out a request for information in relation to the National Flood Insurance Program. And so what they're asking for is information from homeowners like us to share our stories and our asks for what we would like changed or improved in relation to the flood insurance program. The Natural Resources Defense Council is drafting a sample letter. We're going to get that letter, and what we'll do is we'll send it along to you with directions of what you can do and what parts of the letter you can use. You can obviously change what you'd like, add photographs to it. That's really helpful and really meaningful to emphasize to FEMA the challenges and the problems with the flooding in our area. And then actually submit it, and we'll give you directions of how to submit it. It sounds like something like, and when I hear that personally, and I think, why would FEMA, a national organization, actually care about what I think is a homeowner? Well, they actually do, because they do have folks sitting there actually counting and looking at the letters and saying, this person is for this person is for this person doesn't want it. And I will say there are developers and other folks who are going to be submitting letters saying that there shouldn't be changes to the flood insurance program, or that they should be allowed to develop in wetlands, or they should be allowed to fill wetlands, which then, as we know, causes more flooding. So it's really important for us homeowners to emphasize the problems with that, the challenges that we face when they do that, and by doing that specifically with letters. So we'll be submitting a letter as an organization, but we also need letters from individuals. So you'll be getting information from us through an email about how to actually submit the letter and a sample letter and so on. So that will be coming in about a week or so. The other thing that came out is there was a bill introduced in the House. It's called HR 5556. And this bill in particular, looks like this. And so this bill actually is the Flood Risk Transparency for Home Buyers Act. This one is a start to trying to get disclosures on flood claims for properties when it comes to changes to the flood insurance program. It's not enough because it specifically only focuses on properties owned by the Department of Housing and Development, I think it is. So it's not necessarily for individuals, but we are working with Representative Slotkin's office, which I need to actually exit out of, whoops, I'm sorry. Exit out of this and go back. I had my orders wrong on my slides here. We are working with Representative Slotkin's office to actually try and address this change. And I have been told by her aide in DC who's working on this, that they are intending to actually introduce a bill before the winter break this year that would address the lack of disclosures for the National Flood Insurance Program. So what that means is it's going to, their bill is looking like it will require FEMA to update their maps. It will require FEMA to update and increase the minimums for properties that are designated as repetitive loss or severe repetitive loss. And it will require properties to actually disclose the flood claims on homes so that homeowners are informed when they go to purchase a home. When talking with Representative Slotkin, who you can see here, came out to actually see our community back in September. We're talking about it. If you think about, you go to purchase a home or a car, and you have Carfax to figure out what accidents and issues the car may have, but we don't have that necessarily for flooding in relation to homes. And so it's really trying to get a kind of Carfax for homes in a sense. And so she is really taking this up. She's been talking with FEMA about this. Her aide is actually pulling together that legislation, and so that's coming. So more information on that one, but that is also in the works and one that we've been working closely with her office on. This one, I will post this as well, but this is actually a video of her directly asking one of the directors at FEMA specific questions about this and why they do not disclose this information. So she did actually bring this up during a Homeland Security Committee meeting and is really, like I said, really taking this up as a platform, important measure of hers to actually try and address the issues of flooding in communities just like ours. In fact, actually, if you watch the video, she mentions homeowners on Orr Lake. So she's been very closely in contact with us about that, which is exciting that we're actually being heard, which is great. All right. All right, so now I'm going to turn it over actually to Tony, who's going to share a little bit about some information he's gathered, I believe, on some historical data in our community.
Okay, hello. Do you have the previous slide before these?
Oh, is there more before? Uh-oh, hold on.
Yeah, there should be. There should be more.
These
Yes.
ones?
Yeah.
The order I ended up off. Let me flip them.
Yeah.
At
One
first.
more up. One more up.
One more. Oh.
One more.
Okay.
28.
Like that?
Yeah, 28. Slide 29. I'm sorry. No.
Okay.
I'm sorry. Is
this what you want
there
first,
it is.
historical data?
There it is. Yep. Sorry.
Perfect. That's fine.
That's it. Where'd it go? Right. So I'm a resident on Orr Lake, or our family home has been on Orr Lake for over 50 years. And I have learned over the years that the old water levels used to be on average much lower on the river and around Orr Lake, and up to 4 feet. And I have a friend who moved off of Orr Lake named Scott Caesar. He's a hydrogeologist that did some work back in 2005 around this and trying to mitigate flooding around Orr Lake. And so he agrees with me that the original levels were lower. And he also agrees with me that the river basin, part of what's going to help Orr Lake drain out is going to be the depth of the river basin, which we believe has filled in over the year. He completely agrees with that, but I'll mention later that the Huron River, Daniel Brown from the Huron River Watershed Council does not agree with that. So I'm a little confused as to whether we're completely wrong with this theory or what. But anyway, it's 16 miles from the Kent Lake Dam to Portage Lake, and that's about an 8-foot drop. But according to his recollection, this is Scott Caesar again, that's a very low percentage drop if you actually figure it out and do the math. And so it's virtually a zero drop for Orr Lake to drain out through the river channel. He wanted to do back then in 2005 when he did a study, something called a HEC-RAS modeling on the floodplain. And again, he estimates the water levels back, pre-settlement water levels would have been 4 feet lower than they are now. And his package that he gave me, he was kind enough to share his whole package of folder full of data that he did. Nothing's online or anything, but he gave some examples of that. And he advised comparing the pre-1950 topographical maps to infer the original channels. You can do that by looking at the topo lines, and where they come to a point indicates where the river channel was, and you can read off whatever level that was, and you can find out whether those moved up or down over the years. So that I'm still working on getting those topo maps. They are available. They go back to about 1884 to 2006. And so I'm not so sure that that's going to be valuable, because I'll make Daniel Brown's points next. But one thing I want to mention before that is the 1961 Public Act 146, which allows residents to set levels. And my question to Scott was, is that something we can still appeal to? But I don't know if that's a totally moot point at this juncture. We know there's not much you can do at Kent Lake and the dams to control it, but it's just a question. There was an act that allowed residents to set the water level maximum height, and then it would have been the dam's responsibility back when I think they built them back in the 50s. At any rate, can we appeal to that? It's just a question. Maybe someone can answer it after this. So then I met with, this is per the, Amber, you may remember, you suggested to check with the Historical Society of Hamburg, and they had no record of the historical water levels. And so they suggested we go to the HRWC. And so I spoke with Daniel Brown, and he was very helpful. You may know him, right? And and he says the root causes of the dams change flow regimes once they were built, and that slowed the water, and that created more settling. So there is some settling. He does agree with that. And then, of course, we got climate change, which is adding to the input of the water all the time, because it's raining more, it just seems. At least, and so, and the undersized culverts. And he did also mention that those culverts would have been put in the actual midpoint of the equator of the culvert should be where the normal water height is. And that's almost never the case in the Riverside Drive culvert. It's always way over the equator, just even when it's low water. And so, and that's because the things filled in over time, and we all know that. So the undersized culverts, the culverts need work no matter what we do, either dredge them or make them bigger. But he said, if you do want to find the historical channel, and he said, because there's gravel just downstream of Winans Lake Road, there's some nice gravel beds there. And he says there's no way that those at, pre-settlement would have been any deeper. The river channel back down there is still the same as it always was. And I kind of agree with that. So what has happened, and he agrees with this, that up here where I live, it's all muck, and that muck has filled in over the past 50, 60 years since the dams were built, or maybe 70 years since the dams were built. And so it wouldn't hurt to dredge that out or whatever. And you're already talking about that, Amber, so that's all good. But he did say, if you do want to know the original native river channel, you can do what's called a depth to refusal study. And I don't know any more about that, but that's just something we can make a note of if we ever do want to know that. And then he also went on and offered up these GIS pre-settlement maps to current, and we can go to the next slide. And then this is a pre-settlement map, and it shows you that purple is wet prairie. So over there where Durova is, and where I grew up on the north side of Orr Lake, that was all wet prairie that got dredged out, and now there's houses sitting on it. And but that's what it was. But I'm not sure this isn't at all what I was looking for, but it is interesting that because they're not very accurate maps, and I don't think they're any indication of they don't give any indication of the water levels. But I thought it was kind of interesting anyway to take a look at this. And go to the next slide, and you compare that, of course, to today's map, which shows the constriction there at Riverside Culvert that didn't exist before. And so that may have something to do with it too. If the map is actually accurate enough and to actually telling us something that's real. So that's all I have to say, other than it would be nice to know that original river channel and whether it's actually gone up and therefore pushing the normal water height, the median water height up as a result. It does seem like it. With my history on the lake, I'm pretty sure it's still true, but how we mitigate that and drop it back down to more of its original native levels remains to be seen. I'm going to do more work on digging up the pre-settlement topographical maps. Scott Caesar, the only reason I don't have them, Scott Caesar said he might have them, and he might be able to get them all to me for free. So waiting on that. Thanks.
Thanks, Tony. This is really fascinating. I appreciate you taking the time and effort to gather all of this information and learn about it and then share it with us. I'll be curious to see what else you learned from your colleague and also kind of making sense of the maps and so on. Thank you. So what I did want to point out, so we've kind of gone through these different projects, and each of these different projects have been addressing different concerns and questions that were raised from the August meeting. But there are, of course, always more that have not been addressed. And so I did want to make some notes to some of this that we're still working on. So with concerns related to crisis management, so the access of sandbags and pumps and the Red Cross and so on, we're trying to build up better communication with Hamburg Township and with residents to try and allow them people to have access to more support more immediately when there's flooding. So we're still working on that. The concern about the dams not alleviating the flooding problems, which Tony had just mentioned, the constraints with that. One thing I will also say that with the dams we're learning is that the dams in Michigan, almost all of them are regulated by the court system. And the DNR is involved as well. So it makes it virtually impossible to change those levels beyond what they say. Tony, you may find some more information as you continue to investigate that, but that's what we've been hearing from other folks in different spaces as well. And I know there's a couple people on the call who even went to a talk by the Drain Commissioner, Brian Jonkier, and he talked about the influence of dams in Michigan and kind of what that looks like. So there's some information on the Drain Commission website about that too. Other concerns that flooding seems to affect only Ore Lake and the Huron River and not necessarily other area lakes. And again, that'll be kind of getting some more information about the mapping. We just haven't quite got there yet. The issues about the Riverside Culvert, which Tony had talked about, and then boaters not observing the no wake, which again, that's something the township has already recognized and they're working on. And so other questions related to that is like, can flooding be partly mitigated by the dam control, which we talked about, managing the weed harvesting, which the township is trying to improve their efforts toward weed harvesting. And I know there's also been rumor that the Drain Commission is going to start considering some weed harvesting. So that might actually start improving over the years. And then also why aren't other lakes addressing or having the flooding issues that we are, which again, we just don't know those answers yet. So one thing that I wanted to make a note of is there was talk, and you may have seen signs when driving around Brighton about a gravel pit. And so there was talk that the DNR was actually going to allow a gravel pit to actually occur in the Brighton recreation area for the purposes of clearing out spaces so that they can actually have some tree farms there. I did just hear, thank you, Andrea, for kind of researching this and getting a little bit more information that project has actually been stopped. The DNR has just recently come out saying that they're not going to move forward with the gravel pit. So that's exciting. Gravel pit would be a problem for all of us with flooding because of course, anytime you clear cut an area, now water is going to flow instead of be soaking in by all those trees. And that means more flooding for us. And in particular, I have this map because I want to point out that we are down here. Brighton recreation area is over here. And I don't have the watershed map, but this spot where they were considering actually would be in the South Oak Creek watershed, potentially the other spot as well. So it was kind of right at that point where we would be getting the impacts of that when it comes to flooding. Luckily, the DNR has come out and said they're not going to move forward with that project, but I just want to give you a heads up in case you saw those signs, that's what it was. And if you know more, by all means, share it with folks, but that's kind of where we stand with that. So last call here, and then I will stop sharing my screen and give a chance for people to ask questions and so on. But I just want to put a call out for where we can always use help. We can always use help in lots of areas. The most prominent and pressing is the help with removing and potentially even fixing some of the gauges that we have upstream. So I'd ask that you reach out to Carrie Adams or Deanna McDowell to help try and figure out if you're willing to help remove those gauges. Like I said, we need to do that in the next couple weeks or so before all the ice hits and would actually damage them. So we could use help with that. So if you're willing to put on those insulated waders and get in the river and do that, we could really appreciate it. Some more help, we'll be working with Tony about the historical information. As he pointed out, there's a lot of things that we still don't know and could use more information on, though what he shared was also very helpful. So that would be another space if you find interest there. As we're gaining more information about the watersheds and the land use changes and so on, we're going to want to start shifting our attentions to zoning requirements in the different local townships as well as Livingston County to think about what the land use development or land use changes meant for flooding, which then informs any other changes in the area. So for example, other neighborhood developments, other clear cutting, other shopping malls put up, all those things mean more flooding for us, but we need a little bit more information as to what that looks like. And so anyone interested in that is another space that you can also start gathering some information to help us. And then lastly, the Innovation Academy with the students and all the different projects they're working on around land use study, the underwater drone, mapping the watershed of Durova Creek and so on. They are always looking for more support from community members to go in and work with them. Like I said, their high school is all about having run around projects, not necessarily one lesson and another lesson, but specifically project driven. In this case, is projects that are actually helping our community. So if you want to work with students in any of those areas, that's another space. And then lastly, of course, any other projects related to flooding that you'd be interested in. Part of our work is actually helping put people in touch with other folks in relation to the community flooding issues and so on that we're dealing with. And so we're always more than happy to have more folks investigate different aspects of this multifaceted problem that we have and try and learn more. So reach out if those are some spaces that you're interested in. Like I said, we can always use help and so on. So at this point, I'm going to stop sharing my screen and open it up to questions that people had. I know we just threw a whole bunch of information at you about the many different projects we're doing, but also any questions. So any questions you have, but also areas that you'd be willing to help. So I'm gonna stop talking and open it up to all of you folks.
I have a question.
Mhm.
Going back to the, what was that? The National Flood Insurance Program. November 29th we have to submit by, is that, if people want to apply for this program, is that the deadline? Or what is the deadline?
Are you talking about the FEMA grants?
The FEMA grant, yeah.
The FEMA grants. So that has already been, we've already been working with some different homeowners who have been recognized as having very low elevations for their homes. So right at this point, there's really nothing that you need to do per se. Now it's just waiting because the township is the one who has to submit those applications. And so we're working with the township and this McKenna group to actually pull those together to get submitted. So there's nothing that homeowners need to do at this point.
Oh, so they don't need to apply yet?
Not yet. You don't need to apply or anything until if we get funded, which we'll find out in April, then at that point we'd share more information about what it means to apply.
Good.
Yep.
I must have
You have a while.
misunderstood.
Nope, you're good.
Good. So we didn't miss anything yet, right?
Didn't miss anything
We
yet.
didn't
Nope.
apply. Okay.
Nope. We don't
All right.
even know we haven't even submitted the applications yet to FEMA. So we have a little while.
Okay.
Other questions or thoughts?
No questions. You must have done a great job, Amber. So.
Agreed, Amber. Thank you so much for all your time and pulling all these people together. Wow.
Yes.
Yeah. There's some
Good
exciting stuff going on, and we really appreciate the leadership of Diane and Amber around all of this and everybody just coming together. It's, been a silver lining to a hard experience for many people, but it's nice to see the community coming together and the initiatives that you've brought forward Amber and Diane and Led have been, are just amazing. And we're looking forward to seeing some good and positive impacts for people in the community. So thank you for that.
Yes.
I threw a quick question in the chat. I can't really talk right
Oh.
now. But
Eric, yeah, let's see. January 1st required flood insurance. Yes, that's correct. Mhm. Or sorry, January 28th. I have to look back and see. Yeah, Maureen's nodding. January 28th. I was wrong. That's the deadline. But we can reach out to you specifically, Eric, about that. If there aren't other questions, I would ask folks, if you aren't already helping on one of these projects, we really could use the help on things. So if you're willing to help on just any project, please put that in the chat. Or if you have a particular project that you want to focus in on, that would be great too. But though we are a small but mighty group, it would be really helpful to have even more folks, because as Maureen mentioned, we do have a lot going on and could really use the help kind of maneuvering these different spaces. So please put your name in the chat if you're willing to help, and a particular project, if a particular one, or just any project would be great too. Or if you're interested in a different project, that's also great. So I'm an educator. This is where I do my wait time. So I'm going to do my wait time. I'm going to mute myself and give you a moment to think and process, and then share questions or thoughts.
Well, I do want to say there was a tremendous amount of information, Amber, and thank you for putting all that together. It was a great presentation and a ton of information for all of us. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, I was quite happy with the community meeting. It shows you just how passionate everybody that lives around the lake is, because there was a lot of observations, comments, and suggestions, quite a few of which I think we have to take to heart and actually go take a look at. Some that I didn't, many that I didn't think of. So it was great to see residents so involved.
Mm-hmm. So Amber, if you had to say the 5 next steps, what would be the 5 next steps? Major steps. Would that be that the one slide where getting the work with the kids and getting the all of the things out before the ice hits and those? But as far from a major point, next steps is what?
That's a really good question, Deanna. Well, certainly, like, pragmatically getting out the gauges is important because we don't want them damaged from ice. But I think the major step that I'm excited for and looking forward to is that once that happens, our hydrologists actually are going to start analyzing the data that we've been collecting since September, and hopefully start to get some information about what actually is coming in and the potentials of what we can actually be doing. So I think the next major step is actually kind of pulling all of that together and actually figuring out the potential solutions. A lot of people, as Carrie mentioned, it was really great to see a lot of community members in August at that meeting. They shared a lot of ideas, but the problem with that is that we just don't know yet as to which one of those ideas would make the most sense and where, or multiple ideas. And so I think the next big step is actually analyzing that data to get a better sense of where we can go from here. And the exciting part about that is there actually is a lot of grant money out there through the state of Michigan to fund different types of projects in relation to funding and wetlands and all sorts of things, but we just don't have the information yet. And that's what these gauges are gathering for us. So I think that's the biggest step. But of course, there's lots of other side things. So working on the Fema grants, of course, as I know Maureen's just sitting there going, oh my goodness. So the Fema grants, of course, but that's also kind of in the works. So I think the biggest thing for our community is getting that information so we can actually have some solutions.
Yep.
Yeah, sure.
Amber, I
So when
think, oh, go ahead, Tony.
I'm sorry, so when we pull those gauges and we get the information back, any time frame as to when that'll be?
That's a good question. So we are the folks, the hydrologists that we're working with, they are all working pro bono. So this is,
Right.
we're kind of basing it on their time.
We can't just
schedule
say
here.
hurry up.
Right. We can't just say hurry up. We have to like make them lots of cookies and say thank you many times.
Okay.
But they, from what they've told us, they're hoping to have some more information by early spring, because they'll have the winter to actually do those analyses and try and make sense of it, and hopefully get us some information by that point, which is nice because that will at least be a starting point. And at that point, we'll be putting the gauges back in to continue gathering data. So it's definitely a start for that information. The question is, I have no idea if the information they're going to find is they'll find solutions or potential solutions, but that's kind of where we are with that.
Yeah, and I don't know that
Data.
the data itself will produce a solution, but of the, let's say, dozen or so, like you said, Amber, potential things that could be done short term, midterm, long term. I think the data is really going to be a good indicator to point to which of those things could be or would be most effective. And I think, again, whether you see it as good or bad, the fact that we've had a couple of pretty major inrush events on water levels, I would think that this data is going to be pretty illuminating, if you will, depending when they regress it, to say, hey, look, we've finally got a good handle on just where the water is coming from, and it wasn't even quite what we thought. But looking at flow rates and levels and all these kinds of things, I think we're going to learn a lot simply because this was a pretty tough year.
Yes, I agree completely. I mean, luckily we were able to get the gauges in before the September flood, and so we were able to get information about ever since then on all these last 3 floods that we had, which is very helpful. So as we're finishing up, I do want to call attention to Maureen's comment in the chat. Thank you for saying that, Maureen. That another big part of this is that letter campaign to FEMA, which again, I'll be sending info in the next week or so about with a draft letter and how to modify it yourself and then submit it to FEMA. That's really important to do so that we can make sure FEMA is actually recording all of the challenges that we're experiencing and actually making the changes that would help us and other communities. As for a pizza fund, thank you, Eric. We are more than happy to gather resources. I don't think we're at a point of money, but when they do come down next time, it would be great to have some thank yous from our community. So we'll keep you updated on that. The last thing I'll say first, thank you very much for all of you for coming today. This has been really wonderful to have you here. As you probably saw when you came in, this was recorded, so we'll be putting this up on our website. I'll put Jeff, as our wonderful website developer, will actually put up the photos and the aerial video footage of Durova Creek that the kids at Innovation Academy put up there. We'll put the slides from today up there. So you'll have all of that information, and we'll be in touch probably in the next month or a few months. With the holidays coming up, it might not be till the new year. We'll have another meeting to kind of catch up and actually start planning for our spring and the next efforts that we're actually making. So thank you all again. Please reach out with questions, and please help in lots of projects.
Thank you.
Thank you also, Amber. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. I did have a question. I see a phone number 744-9013. No, it's not a phone number. If you can put your name in your name in the chat, or just share who you are, that would be really helpful too. Oh, I just signed off. Never mind. Missed that one.
How about Brian the Red put his name in the chat for us?
Oh, that's my husband. That's what he's like.
Oh, that's Brian the Red. That doesn't fit.
The red hair.
No, Star Trek, something like that would be better.